Welcome to the lesson on the human digestive system. In this lesson, we'll be discussing the process of digestion, but more specifically, we're going to be looking at the human digestive system, the structures and functions of those structures. Nutrition, as we talked about in our last lesson, is the process of obtaining, processing, and assimilating food. And we took a look at that quite in depth in our last lesson. As you previously know from other work in our course, autotrophs can make their own food from inorganic chemicals. Heterotrophs cannot make their own food. They require pre-made organic chemicals. And so this is a nice review from what you learned earlier this year. And then we have the difference between mechanical digestion, which is breaking food into smaller pieces. What this does is increases the surface area of those pieces, which means they can be more easily digested. And mechanical digestion typically takes place in the mouth. And then there's chemical digestion, which is breaking down the food chemically using enzymes. There is a tiny bit of chemical digestion that takes place in the mouth, but most of it takes place in the stomach and small intestines. All right, you're going to need your blue workbook and the human digestive system diagram in that blue workbook. So if you need a moment to go grab that, pause the video and come back when you're ready. Okay, here we have a diagram of the human digestive system. Let's go through and label each of these structures, and we'll go in numerical order in the diagram here. Number one is, of course, the mouth. We'll get to all the functions of these here in a moment. Number two is the tongue, which aids in mechanical digestion. Number three is the salivary glands, which add saliva to our food. Also has an enzyme in it that helps start to digest starch. The epiglottis, which is a structure that blocks the airway while we swallow. Esophagus, the tube that goes down to our stomach. And then we have the liver here, the stomach, the pancreas, kind of hidden behind the stomach right here, the large intestine is on the outside, the small intestine, which is connected to the stomach. It's in between the stomach and the large intestine. The appendix, which is a vestigial structure, has no function for us. The rectum, the anus, of which, of course, excretion takes place. Over here we have an enlarged diagram of the central parts of the digestive system, with this being the stomach, the pancreas, the gallbladder, which is a gland, and the liver. All right, now for the functions of all those structures. We start with the mouth. The mouth performs mechanical digestion. The tongue helps with mechanical digestion and moving food into the esophagus. The salivary glands produce saliva and also begins chemical digestion. They produce an enzyme, recognize this by ASE at the end, called amylase. And amylase is an enzyme that breaks down starch. The epiglottis prevents food from going into the trachea. The esophagus moves food from the mouth to the stomach. The movement of the esophagus pushing food down into the stomach is called peristalsis. The liver is the largest organ in the body in terms of mass. The liver produces bile, a chemical that performs emulsification that helps break down fats and oils. The gallbladder stores bile and releases it into the small intestine. The stomach continues mechanical and chemical digestion. The food enters the stomach through the cardiac sphincter. This would be a muscle between the esophagus and the stomach. The stomach produces hydrochloric acid, which helps the enzyme pepsin break down proteins into smaller pieces. And this is a mixture that leaves the stomach, which is called chyme. The pancreas is an organ that regulates blood sugar. It produces enzymes, sodium bicarbonate, and hormones. The sodium bicarbonate neutralizes the acid in the chyme to protect the lining of the small intestine. The small intestine completes chemical digestion and is responsible for the absorption of nutrients. The chyme enters the duodenum, which is the upper part, through the pyloric valve. The chyme mixes with enzymes from the pancreas, liver, and lining of the duodenum. Villi cover the wall of the small intestine and increase the surface area to absorb nutrients. The large intestine absorbs water from the chyme, and there are bacteria that produce useful compounds in the large intestine as well. If not enough water is absorbed, you end up with diarrhea. If too much water is absorbed, you end up with constipation. The rectum is the last section of the large intestine, and the anus, which eliminates the feces. And as mentioned earlier, the appendix has no useful function, is now considered a vestigial organ. Okay, that'll do it on our notes for the human digestive system. Now let's take a look at this video to expand on this process.